Fabio, I have one question for you. Do you think that there's a future for FMT in those dogs without diarrhea but with signs of upper GI upset, like just nausea, vomiting, you know?
So that's I don't know what it is. Yeah, it's an excellent question. I'm inclined to say, well, of course we don't know because we need to well characterize these dogs, because I think they might be the equivalent to what people call some of those gut-brain axis interaction disorder. But because we had a few, and I can remember at least 3 or 4, Bichons and miniature poodles, and there are also included in this description. They responded. So my answer is probably yes. But we really need to better characterize this population that we see more and more often. I know that you also talked about it. Yeah. So yeah.
So hi, I have 2 questions. So first of all, thanks for this interesting presentation. So my first question is, you talked about the benefits of FMT, but my question here, what are the risks or maybe the side effects of FMT? And the second question, do you think the donor microbiota composition affect the outcomes of FMT or no?
These are 2 excellent questions. I mean, the first one, it's easy, because probably the most robust evidence we have is on the safety of FMT in dogs, but it's the same in people. You find extremely rare cases of, serious complications from FMT. You might expect some GI, upset, but bear in mind that the majority of the cases we do FMT on do have GI upset. So even when the owner mentions it, it's not necessarily true, but in my experience it's very safe, and the publications say so. All the papers I cited and that we reviewed agreed on the safety of FMT. There is a paper in cats that has been recently published where they described a few side effects, but if you look into that, they were all very mild and easily manageable. So yeah, I think one message that we can definitely send across is that FMT is safe, okay, in people, in dogs, and in cats. With some potential side effects, mostly gastrointestinal related, but easily manageable. Nothing like major. So there are no reported major complications for FMT. If you think about one of the applications for FMT is parvovirus in puppies, and if you think about the destruction to the gut barrier in puppies with parvovirus, and there are no reports of major complication. Actually, they benefit from FMT. So it is. Of course, there are some unknown possibility, but it's quite safe. And the second question was on the
donor microbiota composition.
At the moment, we don't have any, evidence that knowing the specifics of the composition will help. There are some people they think that actually pooling different donors is the way forward. There was a time where we actually talked about the super donor, so linking efficacy to the microbiota composition, but at the moment the opinion is that you can pool different donors, so it doesn't really affect efficacy. Even engraftment doesn't seem to be linked with clinical efficacy.
I've got, first of all, thank you for all your presentation. I've got a global question about today for the microbiota. There is a lot of influence of environment, breed, age, problem. And so my question will be, in your opinion, what will be the number of dogs to evaluate a good microbiota, I will say, and microbiota with higher risk? So because as you discussed a little bit, we have a study on few number of dogs, and in fact we need much more. And what is your opinion of the, I would say, minimum number of dogs to have a real evaluation?
Who are you asking this question? I'm gonna pass on to someone because it's a very difficult question. You want to try that on
Yeah,
the
because you spoke about 30,000 of dogs, so maybe.
Well, I think, you know, I mean, knowing what is a healthy microbiota is a difficult question. So what we see in general population survey of microbiota composition, probably there is not one healthy microbiota. There is several which are adjusted to person, lifestyle, geography. And what is really amazing, and we don't know how it's working, is that when you look in disease people, for example, people with obesity, if you screen those people for their microbiota, you always have what my colleague Karine Clément is calling happy obese, because they are obese, but they have good clinical parameters, and their microbiota seems to be, according to the criteria we have right now, which is, diversity, functionality, those kind of things, is quite good. So there is something behind the concept of healthy microbiota, which is not that easy to define. With very large cohort, and I have to say that right now we are preparing a kind of, we are pushing for a kind of microbiome observatory, World Microbiome Observatory, One Health. And we would like to have, it's not, people will decide whether they want to share their data or not, but we think that we can have much more power if we put together the information that is available. So we are pushing for that in the framework of World Microbiome Partnership, which is an initiative that we launched last year. And you are very welcome if you are interested. You just look for WMP on the website. We have a website and so on. We have working groups. So far, I know we don't have so many people, or I think we have, working on companion animals, but you are very welcome to join, and I think it can be very interesting to have your question in addition to those we have. And it's really all environment. But I think, people revised a little bit. At the beginning, we had the idea that we had healthy microbiota and dysbiotic microbiota. Right now, I think the vision is more that there is many ways of having a healthy microbiota, or a healthy combination of microbiota and host, and human or dog. And there is several ways of having dysbiotic or microbiota leading to disease. And it's probably this, this interplay, and combination and personalization of our understanding of the symbiosis between those two entities, which will give some answer. But it's not an easy question.
Maybe linked to this, do you think it's better to have one vision of the microbiota and to follow the health of dogs or people, or to try to have less people or dogs, but to have several points of their microbiota in time?
I think what we should try to have is large cohorts or large populational studies with longitudinal follow-up, because what we would like to know is, and it's still a question, is whether microbiota and microbiota composition can be early prognostic of a disease. And that we will only know if we can survey a large number of people, because we need to have enough people to see the disease appearing, to have a good frequency, I would say, enough power to measure that. And it's only by those kind of study and longitudinal studies that we can see, those persons now have IBD or whatever. And if we look back at what happened in terms of microbiota, in terms of medical treatment, in terms of lifestyle, we can identify something which can prognostic that. when it's in general population, in France, for example, general population, we know that 25 to 30% of healthy people have a microbiota with quite low diversity. Our hypothesis is that those people will be are more prone to, will suffer from disease in the future. But to prove that, we need to follow those people.
Yes, I have also a question, but first of all, I wanted to say that it's a beautiful day, IB Day, by the way. So thank you. Although there are some questions, of course, still there, and I think there are a lot of work to do, mostly for follow-up of the animals, because there are, as I understood, many different ways, and there is no one good way. And the same for the treatment. I have an impression that there is a lot of things, but no consensus what we should do. So it showed that we have we need more IB days with more answers. But my question would be a little bit different. I'm working rather on pediatric animals, and I was wondering if all those treatments can be applied also to young animals, growing animals with different needs, with different digestive tract, because it's not mature, with different also diet. What do you think?
Try, Tristan.
I can answer for probiotics first, maybe. So probiotics would be also inoffensive for pediatric patients, so that could help this one, especially when you have an early onset of diarrhea in these puppies, for example, after weaning or after any change in the diet. Maybe some probiotics could help remains good, remains healthy, I mean, during such an injury, such an event that is important for this dog. So I think that probiotics could be used as a sure product to help these puppies. And for the diet, we do know that specific needs are important for puppies, and maybe hydrolyzed diets, as we spoke about it, is not balanced for these kind of dogs because of the age. So maybe they are more prone to receive novel ingredient diets or uncooked diets that are ensured for having for covering their needs, and maybe hydrolyzed diet is for later if we do not have any benefit with appropriate for the age diet, I think.
We should complete that night.
Yeah, I think I can just make a comment on the studies that we have as well, which obviously you're well aware of, but I think that there is some really good indications that maybe the establishment of a healthy microbiome in the early stages of life could have an impact longer term on health. And I think that's an area that still really needs to be investigated. But if we can work on establishing it through the use of probiotics in reproduction, we may be able to help these young neonates have a better chance of having a healthy microbiome as they age.
Yeah. Maybe to complete for pigs, there is study because for primary production, young pigs, they are separated from them from the swine quite early, and usually they had lots of diarrhea because and one reason is that their microbiota is not well established and they are big shift of environmental conditions. So there is studies where people just give microbiota to those really young pigs, and it improves a lot the situation. So I think there is, of course you have to consider the very well the case, but I think there is no expecting negative effect with young animals.
Yes, and in certain cases, S. boulardii has been tested in other species than dogs and cats more extensively, including in swine and in bovine. And they had very good results in terms of growth So I think we can expect a similar result for microbiome in other species with yeast probiotics adapted to the particular species.
Well, we don't have knowledge of the safe age for doing FMT, but I can again use the example of the several studies, because we have these are studies that have confirmed the original findings in puppies with parvoviral infection, and many of these puppies are quite young, and there were no, at least short-term side effects to the use of FMT. So I don't actually think there is a major risk. Although we don't have any data. We know that puppies usually up to 3 months of age, they actually have what we would consider a severely dysbiotic microbiota, because they're probably the ones with the highest number of C. diff in the feces. Adult dogs don't usually have that. Puppies are, but the moment the normal, let's say healthy microbiota comes, they just disappear. So it's quite nice. But I don't think there's any other info on that. So I think it's safer than we maybe think. Thinking of those trillions of bacteria.
But you are checking.
Is there
The
any other
dysbiosis
question
index?
for Diana, because she has to leave in 4 minutes?
Yes.
So do you have any question about
Yeah.
yeast or something like that?
So
No.
what a good point to make is that in those puppies we are still we know what microbiota we are obviously transplanting. So it's a healthy microbiota. So it's not a microbiota taken from like an unknown. Yes. So it's a fully screened and healthy microbiota.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Christina, is your question related with Diana? Yes, it is related. Sorry, do you have a microphone there that you can?
Thank you. Very quickly, for kittens, you said that yeast can help them to cope with new situations, but how do you complement them? Is it 1 week before, 2 weeks before? Do you need to have an idea of when will the event take place?
So I think that, yes, this is a very good point, because in our cases, we supplemented prior to the transition taking place. So I honestly can't tell you exactly how long before you would need to supplement to see an effect. I think the hope is that we can encourage supplementation in the period, and we had established prior to any transitions taking place that they had already had at least a couple of weeks of 14 days of supplementation. So I think for now that would be the recommendation, but to be studied in the future for sure if we could reduce that period of time or even administer after the event. Because again, even in the dogs, the adult dogs that were supplemented, there was a supplementation prior to the transition. So it would be nice to have results as well in dogs that we supplement after.
No more question for Diana? No, so thank you very much, Diana, for being with us.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Oh, you have.
Yeah.
Because there is this gut-brain axis.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering whether you check for anxiety or if you have any effect on the welfare or anxiety behavior, those kind of things.
We didn't have any kind of quality of life studies. I think that's something else that we've discussed potentially for future studies. I mean, the NeoCare study was extremely expensive in terms of the number of parameters, and our other studies were more limited, and their purpose was more structured and looking for very specific benefits. But those are studies we've considered in the future in terms of whether there would be a calming benefit to administration of S. boulardii is something we're considering investigation.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Diana. She has to leave, so it's a big applause to her. If the taxi is waiting for you, you can go through this door. It will be faster. So there was other questions here.
And for those who are leaving, can you, if you don't mind, just put the badges in the box here? If you can. Thank you.
Thank you for all the really great presentation. I have a really general question. I was wondering, do you know, or is there any studies about the influence on the microbiota of the owner and on his pet and on the pet to the owner, so that as a cross-reactivity microbiota between pet owner?
Not yet. So there is a big project here in France, which is the French gut, and lately the French kids gut also. And you have to fill a long formula with many informations on your habits, food habits, but also having pets at home, being rural or being urban citizen. And then you have to give a bit of yourself. So just you have to give feces. And we are collecting a huge amount of feces across all French citizens, diseased one, but also healthy one, and there will be a huge statistical analysis to see if having a dog impacts your gut microbiota, for example. So we will have findings, but I don't think that we have anything so far. But, yeah.
You want to take the feces from the dog?
No, also not yet.
Thank you, everybody, for the very insightful presentations. I have two questions for Fabio. The first one is, in your case, if I'm not wrong, Iranonis is going up after the first FMT, while the dysbiosis index is still high, and it's going down only after the second one. So the question is, are these two parameters, Iranonis and the dysbiosis index, not directly correlated?
Well, that's a good point, and you were very carefully watching the slide. Well done. Yeah, no, typically what you see is actually the other way around, having a normal dysbiosis index with Peptacetobacter low in abundance, which equals to dysbiosis, but very rarely you also see the other way around. I don't know exactly the way they, gather the index, the numerical index, based on the abundance of each bacterial group, but I know the Peptacetobacter has a higher relative weight compared to the other. So you often see them moving together, but they are not necessarily always the case. So it can happen, and I would still consider, for example, that case as a dysbiotic. So yes.
And the second question is about the first paper you presented.
Yeah.
And you only have two cases which are not responding to FMT. Did you characterize the two cases? Do we know if there are any specific cases?
They ended up, well, the true answer is that we could have actually tried again with FMT or further characterized them, but they were not actually treated in our hospital. They were from the University of Bologna, and they ended up onto glucocorticoids, and they seem to be responding, at least in the remaining days. So they were labeled as steroid responsive.
They were between the dysbiotics.
I don't exactly know, because we removed them from the statistical analysis, so I won't be able to tell you exactly, but yes.
I have a question about FMT as well. Do you know how diets from the donor or from the receiver can influence the success of the FMT?
No, I'll answer. I don't know. You can add. I can only say that we discussed this because it's a very important point. This point during the guidelines publications, and there's no evidence that you actually need to the donor to be on a specific diet if the screening, including microbiota analysis, is normal. And so what we usually recommend is just a complete balanced diet is more than enough, as long as you have evidence of a normal microbiota. But it could be interesting to see whether by, I don't know, enriching with fiber a donor, not the other, see whether that might impact. So it's a good question, but in our guidelines we don't recommend a specific diet as long as is a good quality, highly digestible, well, completely balanced, and you have ensured that the microbiota is normal. So yeah, that would be my answer. But good point, good question.
Any other question? Moez, do you have a question?
Okay,
or comment?
Yeah, perhaps one question. Yeah, did you think that the animal companies are well represented in the One Health concept? It is a philosophy question, but yeah, we discussed during the lunch, and there is a lot of colleagues. They are thinking, okay, what is the place of the animal companion? What you think? And also, I know that Emmanuel, we are discussing of several discussion at European level. So what you think? Why did you think that it is important to focus more on that? Did you think that there is something which didn't do good still now in order to better consider this companion animal in frame of this one concept of health? What do you think? What is your comment?
I think he's asking you. He was looking at you.
Do you want to? Okay. Okay. I think right now for the One Health concept, I would. I think that it developed mostly for zoonosis, on the focus of zoonosis, and lots of on viral dissemination, and so I think we are now just at a period where people think more about what it means, considering just global health, and it's clear that it's more than that. So if you really look at the definition, which is really broad, many questions that we have are under the umbrella of One Health, and yes, I think of course companion animals should be considered in this concept. Of course, they are in close contact with humans. They are in close contact with the environment. They can be vector of diseases. They can be beneficial for diseased people. So and even for health, it's developed. It seems to be, young humans who are exposed or not exposed to animals seems to have a different, response to allergy or different development of diseases. So I think they are part of our life. They are quite important, and they should be in there. Of course, they are part of our environment. So.
Speak loud, please.
If I may, I just want to be philosophical. I feel like I want to join the philosophy discussion. I totally agree that right now, if you look at the One Health concept, seems to be heavily skewed towards one direction only. It's only directed at the concerns for human health rather than dogs and cats. But there is now, growing evidence that dogs and cats actually, by existing and being healthy, contribute to human health, especially mental well-being, and this could be a drive, to absolutely agree with you and increase the investments and on research for dogs and cats, because it's well shown now that human well-being depends from the well-being of dogs and cats, right? I think the people with more psychological burden and are pet owners. I don't know if you share this this impression I have. I mean, we see people really on the verge of breakdown, or so it's definitely needs to be recognized how the well-being, the health status of dogs and cats can actually contribute to the mental well-being of people, of families. And as you said, there are studies actually in Italy where just visiting like a factory or for a kid, it actually improves his microbiota, and also lowers the risk of developing chronic immune-mediated diseases. And same for kids that actually own and live with a pet. So I think we have now something to use to go to institutions and say you need to think about dogs and cats as well and their health. Yeah.
Thank you. I don't know if you have other questions. Perhaps I have a question for Claire. So yes. Sorry, I'm so tired. So you see, during the presentation, we see that the microbiome, hope that you are all convinced that the microbiome have a great role and it impacts the host health. And also, speakers, they show that the diet is one of the major factors that is influencing the composition and, by the way, the function of the microbiome. But in case of animal companion, diet is related also to owners. So did owners that are included in your questionnaires, they are well represented or today or not? You see or not? No? Perhaps, yeah?
Maybe I can translate. No, the owner is deciding about the food. What is the impact of the kind of owner you have in front of you to decide what kind of food you can give to this dog? I mean, there is science and there is an owner, which is probably a prism to decide what kind of diet. So it was maybe Agathe can help to answer that question, and and don't let Claire being alone face to this question.
We don't have a lot of studies about how the environment, and especially the cultural environment of people, I mean, not only the country, but also the financial means of the people can influence the diet, but even the disease and how they cope with the disease. So there is definitely, I think, a link, but I don't have any study in mind that prove that there is a link. And I don't know if there is any question about the diet in your quality of life, but I don't think it's included.
There's a question about diet, was there's the impact of the quality of life of dietary restrictions for the owner.
Yeah, so it's kind of the way around, like how dietary something like that can impact the quality of life of the owner, and not really the way around.
Okay, we can stop. Okay, yeah. Two things before leaving. I'd like a big thank to these two guys that made the day run.
Very beautiful.
Including with the US and with the UK. So they did a really great job. Thank you to you. And a big applause to our speakers. Thank you, Vincent. Thank you, Emmanuel. Thank you, Fabio, Tristan, Claire, and Artie, Kat, Karen, everybody. So a big applause to them, please.